All right, welcome back to the Maturity Project. I'm your host, Chad Everett Rocheers. If you're new to the channel, it's about 8 different areas of maturity. They're all listed on the actual channel on YouTube, so if you'd like to go to the description, you can read some about it. I'm here joined today with a friend of mine and a man with quite a few amazing stories. I'll let Justin introduce himself. Go ahead, Justin.
Hey, Chad. Thanks for having me, man. My name's Justin ropele. I'm been in the St. Pete area for 15 years, but originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So, really here to support the entire effort, and hope you guys are listening to the message. Thank you.
Yes. So Justin and I, we've known each other now probably since 2018, I want to say.
Oh man, yeah, at least.
About that?
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe even earlier. Yeah,
I
when
would
did you
say
get
it's
the house in
like
Clearwater?
2013, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I sold the Clearwater house in like 2018.
Oh, okay. So, wow, it does go back
Yeah,
a bit further.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
fun story, guys. So Chad's a great dude, but I was shoveling about 15 yards of river rock at my home. If you know what a yard of rock looks like, I mean it's
It's a pretty substantial amount of work.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And Chad and his buddy, our buddy at the time, Adam, came across the street, each with a shovel in their hand, and said, "Hey, look, dude, we got it." It's about the most generous thing I've ever seen in my life, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So we branched off from there.
Yeah. So here's the scene. So Adam and I lived together at the time here in his Clearwater house, and Justin had just recently bought the house adjacent to across the street from us. And here he is. He's out there. It's what it had to have been, I think, the summer.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
it's a summer in Florida, and it is not the most desirable atmosphere. Right. You're out there. It's humid. You're sweating like crazy. It's the hot Florida heat. And the sun's beating down on you. And we see this guy across the street that Adam and I hadn't really met yet. And he's over there just laboring. And we know that's a lot of work, to do even for one person, even if it was only 1 yard, you know. And so we go over and we just say, hey, you know what? Hey, man, we're going to help out. Adam, Chad, we're here to help,
Yeah.
And that was it. From there on, it was just, hey. Now, I will say this. The previous owner to Justin, with the Maturity Project, I will tell you, had degrees of financial success and maturity and financial success, but I would definitely say his community maturity was much lower because he was in the category of what I would say is a borderline con artist, if not a con artist full blown. And it was, I don't know exactly what he did, but he had a new vehicle in the yard almost every week. It was quick turnover. One memorable moment that I had with a previous neighbor is one of the reasons why I was so incredibly happy to see a good guy living next door was I woke up as a personal trainer at the time. We had the windows open because it was at least I think it had to have been the spring then. And so the wind in Florida, or the weather in Florida, was pretty decent. And I wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and all I hear is that song, Moves Like Mick Jagger. Or Moves Like Jagger, or whatever the hell. And that song just kept on repeat, and it was so damn loud. So I finally got up, again, early as could be. And this is still, at that time, it was still about 2 hours earlier than I needed to wake up. And I see that this guy is, there's a Corvette in his driveway, and Justin's driveway, but it was previous to his ownership there. And all I hear is that music coming out of it. I go over next door because it's not stopping. And I gave him time. The guy's passed out in the driver's seat. Music's blaring. I knock on the window loud enough to at least hear me, and there was no response. I was shaking the car after a good 10, 15 minutes of trying to get this guy to wake up.
Wow.
And I mean shaking his car. And finally he woke up, looked at me like I had a problem, and then turned down his radio, and I said, that's all I wanted, thank you. I'm glad that you're at least safe, and you're okay.
Yeah.
And then that was it, my only interaction with the guy. And then after the fact, there was some other issues. And I know that Justin, the reason why I also categorize this guy with that position of having the con artist values, is that what Justin discovered after buying the house.
Yeah, sure.
So he had some issues with it that needed to be sought out in court because of non-disclosure of specific issues that should have been disclosed during the process of the sale of the house.
Correct. Yeah.
So, with that being said, it really gave us a lot of effort to actually make good friends with somebody who we considered we wanted to stay next door. So, anyway, so that's that. But my experience of Justin has been one, he's one of the guys that has one of the best hearts that I know. Like, the guy is just a pure-hearted guy. Falls into the category of being an incredibly good guy. You know, he's the nice guy persona, or the stereotype in a lot of extent.
Thank you.
So with that, and I know several people like that, but Justin's one of them that really stands out amongst a lot of people. So with that, we talked a bit, and I found out that Justin's been following my work for a bit now, and I wasn't really fully aware, and now I'm far more aware of what he's been following. And as you guys have been following, for the ones that are subscribed or do watch the channel regularly, the degrees of inspiration really does hurt. It touches me to realize that you guys are getting such great benefit out of it. So I've asked Justin to participate in the show to help bring more of his person to this. So with that, Justin, if you have anything in that, if I can touch on your occupation, and then we'll go into the maturity portions.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm well educated. I did my undergraduate at Penn State University, and then did a graduate degree at Robert Morris University, which is also in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. But I've spent the majority of my career as a sales executive, multiple segments. Started with IT, so big, large computer infrastructures. Moved over to hardware, so I spent about 14 years with Ace Hardware as an executive, and now I'm in securities at this point. So
yeah, it's fascinating, really. The trajectory our education and our experience takes us.
Yeah.
And so your undergrad, is in education.
My undergrad's actually in business development. Business management,
I love it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't aware of that part. I knew that you have a master's in education, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
It's interesting what it does, right?
Yeah.
It carries us into what we do with our life.
Absolutely. And a difference between being 18 and being 30.
Right.
I mean, it's the best way I know to explain it, really.
Yeah.
So.
And it's like, and what you mean by 18 to 30 is like what decisions you make when you're 18, and then the decisions and the things you understand and value when you're 30.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, including the maturity. I mean, not a play on words there at all.
Yeah.
This is 18. You don't know. I think that's a fallacy in our society. To be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
We got thousands and thousands and thousands of kids that come out of high school, and you're projected to go to college, and at 18 you need to decide what you're doing
for life. Right.
That's flawed. Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can like him, you can dislike him, but obviously a successful guy.
Mm-hmm.
He would publicly tell you that's an issue with the United States society right now. So
I absolutely agree. And even in high school, I had come to the realization in high school that we're set up in a way that we don't know what we want in the future, but we've got a lot of pressure to tell us where we should go and what we should do. And the way that education was rolled out had a challenge with our ability to mature with it. Now, this is predating anything when it comes to the maturity project as what it is today, but it's a foundational thought that I had that We're just not being taught in the most effective way.
Correct.
And when we do choose the directions in college, a lot of that comes from the influence of our parents or early authorities, and we see inspiration in that direction, but that does not mean that it actually meets our traits and characteristics or even our life views. Overall, it's just do this now because this is a successful way to have make a living.
No, 100%.
Right. And in the maturity project direction, that's education and finance and possibly business, so those three categories. But most people are going to study those things. They're not going to study the other five that actually gives you the fulfilling experiences in life. Yep. We'll get sexuality mixed in when we get to the point of sexual reasoning, the sexual awareness to reasoning. And then we'll have that infused, but we're not guided in that area very often. We're done by peers, and peers are looking for things to just be able to push the envelope or, something that they've experienced, but not necessarily a mature version of it. Yep. It's the maturing process that they're going through, because we have a lot of taboos around sexuality.
Sure.
But you go to university, you're separated from your parents for the first time, really. You've got new responsibilities. You don't have to hide specific behaviors to your parents anyway, because they're just completely oblivious to it. You're at such a distance.
Yeah.
And then you get into the party scene, you get all these things going on, which is really, it's actually helpful to a great degree, but it's helpful with a price tag.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when you're going through that party phase, the information you're conditioning yourself with will be interlaced with intoxication or whatever other behaviors you get into, which often intoxication of some type.
Yeah.
Then you've got, what is it? It's situational recall, I believe is what it's referred to,
Okay.
where if you study under the influence of drugs often, when you're in the altered state of drugs, you actually have a better recall over it versus the sober version, because of the way you condition yourself. There's a lot of fascinating things that go into it, but I prefer that we make, if possible, and I'm sure that a lot of students would agree with this, or graduates would agree with this, is that those mistakes weren't so costly, because those mistakes come with tuition.
Right.
The cost of tuition.
Yep.
Right? And I wanted to stay out and party all night, and now
Sure.
I can't stay awake in class, and I've got to take these drugs like Adderall, which is going to have its own physical costs to it. A dependency potential, because you're like, hey, last time I partied, I got that upper from Adderall, and I really stuck to it, and that was focused. But when you don't have that influence of Adderall, then you may not be able to focus the same, and then your grades start to become more challenged, and you got to go through the challenge of exceeding the influence of those drugs by them being gone in order to get back to what you would have been had you not partied in the first place and used the drugs to overcome it.
100%.
Right?
100%.
So it's like taking these big ways around, and it's not to say it's right or wrong, it's just know that it's there, and that can be part of that regret sequence when it comes to going through school.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, absolutely. And how avoidable that could all be with a couple of years of maturity.
Absolutely.
But we're not built that way.
Nope.
Not as a community anyway.
No.
Yeah.
What would be a great idea, and I'm not saying that this is something we need to do, because I'm not a big fan of the way that governments involve themselves in the private sector, or even a lot of things actually. But if there were a segment that is the transition from high school to college, which is like 4 years of working for some industry and giving you options to work through different industries. Now, I'm more of a fan of the private sector doing it than to have a government do it, where, I would love to build businesses like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yes, these are on-the-job training businesses, like when you cosmetology school. You go and you're learning to get haircuts and things like that, and you've got people going in, they pay next to nothing for the haircut, but they have to deal with the fact that it's your head they're practicing on, right?
Right.
But create a segment like that.
It's an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
Or mentorship and mentee.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And that would take. So a situation like that, if you had a mentor running a business, having a mentee come in would actually reduce that mentor's productivity in the direction of their service or product, unless their service or product is that. But that can be ancillary. Your job is to create this widget. You're an expert at it. You're a mentor level expert at it. You can teach this effectively. Then you bring in a mentee. That person may not be able to produce as many of those widgets, but they're producing it with somebody else's ability to replicate, and then that person's ability to replicate now can exceed the total capacity of what that particular mentor was able to produce.
Mm-hmm.
But we bring it so that that other person needs to get up to that level. The way to make that work in the private sector's direction is that the mentorship would be an additional pay structure to make up the difference for the loss of the widget values. So it still levels it off, and we're contributing to our community to help bring people up to the point that they're actually more successful overall.
Yeah.
And then they can transition from there into whatever university or whatever field of study they want to go into, trade or whatever it might be. But they have real world experience. And I would want that myself. I would want that to be, you may be here working on the widget, but you're also going to be learning how the business works on the back end, not just the front end.
Yeah.
So that you're truly there to be mentored into being either a really good employee or a good business owner.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff, like I see a vision of creating things like that, so
Sure.
that we can offset the upset that comes with the traditional method we've been dealing with college, university. So
I wish I had that.
right,
I do.
so do I.
Yeah.
I really do wish
Yeah.
but I like the challenges that I've had.
Yeah.
You know,
I do
and
too.
I'm an adapter, so
Yeah,
not
sure.
everybody has that same ability to adapt that I do. But it's not to say that I'm special or better. It's just different.
Right. Right.
So, and I love challenges because challenges create those traits that you can actually work with, because a challenge is a lesson, and the lesson is the thing that you get out of it is the traits or the characteristic changes
Yeah.
that make you that much more capable. You
I
know,
think that's why we're here today, to be honest with you.
Yes.
I mean, I know that's for me, that's why I'm here, for sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
and thank you for the contribution.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Justin's been following the work a bit, and if you don't mind telling them a little bit more about like what you've actually learned so far by following what I've been putting out.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so, there's so much content to talk about, but when you get down to the brass tacks of things, I mean, we're not in a situation where things are given. You have to be able to develop, basically what you want. And with the maturity project that Chad's put through, it resonates a lot because we're sitting and we're talking about a situation where, you develop the human being that you want to be. You develop the circumstances that you want to fortify in your life, and that's really what attracts me to the situation. So I've had some life experiences, if you will, some stuff I think we're probably going to get into, and it took me, to be perfectly frank, it took me about 45 years of my life to recognize what we're talking about here today. And it's not my intentions to be vague, but you produce the results that you're intended to produce, and I'm not the type of human being where I see a whole lot of gray matter. It's you either do or you don't do, and that's where we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to add to that, Justin, is that for me, it's always like whenever a challenge comes up, you have two directions, and it's the same coin. It's either you take on the challenge and you learn the lesson, or you let that challenge become chaos.
Yep.
And life is always going to throw things at us. It's just a matter of how do you make those decisions. And you need to make the decision at the time. You're going to hurt if you let it turn to chaos, and you're going to hurt if you let it go to a lesson. But the thing is that when you let it go to a lesson, you're going to be in better functional shape for life. You're getting more mature shape, more maturity, than to allow something chaotic. Because with chaos, you learn how to quarantine or lock things away as best that you can. They don't go away. And when you start saying, I want a bigger life, I want this goal, I want this thing, I want that relationship, whatever it is, that chaos is waiting to be let out. Mm-hmm. And when you're like, okay, I'm ready to grow, you have a closet full of chaos that is ready to take you over, beat you into submission, and make you beg to close the door again.
Yep.
Versus going, okay, this, by the way, I talk about this specifically in Pandora's Box when I talk about Pandora's Box. And you, every time you choose that a challenge is something chaotic you need to lock away, you put it in Pandora's Box.
Yep.
It's just a matter of time before it gets out.
Yep.
You know, and usually it gets out by your curiosity. You just don't realize your curiosity is taking you there. You're like, you know what? I'm ready for a relationship now. The relationships is an easy one for this because most people relate to, I always seem to date the same type of person. Or here's the other one that most people don't realize until they're there. They find somebody who fits all of the safety features they're looking for, but it's not sexy or it doesn't excite them. Like a car, right? What's your favorite preferences in a vehicle? Do you want it to be a slick, sexy, fast, quick response, high performance vehicle? Well, if you do want that, your safety features are likely going to be quite a bit lower, but that's part of the fun of the vehicle.
Right.
Where the other one could be this big old tank SUV thing or minivan or something that doesn't have any of the excitement and sexual values that really lead you to it. But damn it, are you secure? So then you get like nice guy situation where you got the security of the minivan.
Right.
She loves it when it's time to take the kids around and do all the great stuff. But whenever it's girls' night out, the minivan isn't the sexy thing to show up.
Right.
It's the Corvette, it's the Ferrari, it's whatever.
Right.
You know, and when they go out, are they looking for another minivan or are they looking for that Ferrari? They're not looking for anything, but then that Corvette rolls up on them. And it's like, can I buy you a drink? You know, and they have the right pickup lines or whatever. Right. So if we want to create something different, we got to understand how to make ourselves into that thing. Right. So the nice guy can have a lot of great secrets. And that's one of the things that I love about the Maturity Project is that you can teach that. Right, you have like the traditional wonderful nice guy Justin, right?
Right.
But if you don't know what's behind the door, right, what's in the closet with Justin, you may be like, well, that guy's just a tame guy.
Right.
Until you get to know him and you're like, holy crap, this guy's a little bit more than meets the eye, and it's a secret that I enjoy keeping, right?
Sure.
Because my experience is I've talked about being involved in a lot of affairs, and it's not a bragging point. I do not dismiss or excuse my behaviors that I've been involved in my life. It's just that it was not mature decisions of mine. You know, and you know, it's nearly every one of the affairs that I've been involved in, the nice guy was on the other side. And the wife was the one that was not happy, you know, the one that really was wanting the excitement. So with that, we got to figure out how to balance things out. I am committed not to have any more affairs, because that's not for me, and I don't want to create that into the world, and I don't want to guide people to make that happen. So, let's see if this is still, I apologize, but I see that this might be, okay, we're good.
Okay.
It just froze there for a second. If you guys noticed that we just leaned in for a second, the screen froze for a second, but it looks like we've been recording. So anyway, moving into that, the challenges, we got to choose them, right? Challenge turns to a lesson or chaos.
Yeah.
You've gone through a lot of your own unique challenges, and it
Sure.
took you 45 years of challenges until you finally started to synchronize with something that has more structure and support for what you want the world to be like, right? For you to experience into the world.
Right.
So if you don't mind sharing a little bit more, I'm sorry, let me back up for 1 second here, and I apologize to everybody here. Because remember, with us, we're failing up, right? We're going to fail up, baby. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes along the way, so thanks for your privilege of forgiveness. And so 2 strengths and maturity, and then I also requested a weakness.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind talking about one of the areas of maturity that's a strength of yours, because we've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But the 2 areas that you'd like to talk about, we'll just pick one at a time and kind of go through a little bit of it.
Probably, emotional.
Okay.
And man, we're talking about like a major transformation in the last 2 years. I would suggest that it was a weakness, as much as 24 months ago. And it's a strength.
Okay.
Today.
That's fantastic, and that's a pretty drastic turn. 24 months, you got 40. We have we'll say that the first 5 years really not a whole lot there, because the first 5 years of life there's a lot of growth and development and foundation, but there's not a lot of cognitive things that are necessarily like the complexity of the adult person, right?
Sure.
So we'll say 45 years of becoming you,
Yeah.
and now you go back. So we say 24 months. Now you're looking at 43 years.
There I am.
So that's a pretty big statement.
Yeah.
So what is it about? What was it that you would consider was the weakness in emotional maturity? Specifically, if you could put your finger on like a gear that was screwed up, if you will, or just not big enough for what you needed it to be.
Yeah. So I think probably the I apologize for the pause. I think the number one item though was not realizing self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
Not kind of coming through life with there's a certain expectation that I was raised with, and God-loving parents. They absolutely did the best job they could, but it was under an atmosphere that you're a part of society, you're supposed to fit in, you're you're not supposed to ruffle feathers. You're not supposed to upend the apple cart. You're supposed to just be a decent, kind person, and I 100% encourage everybody to be decent, to be a positive piece of society. What I will also say is that in life, this is relatively unfortunate, but in life, the storm's going to come at some point. And that storm can be in the way of disease, it can be in the way of family, it can be in the way of relationships, it can also be in the way of your entrepreneurship, your career, and when that day comes, that take it easy, laid back, non-confrontational human being. Sometimes there are points in time where that does not serve you, and that's what took me so long to understand in a nutshell. So
yeah. So a lot of it is, we get in that fixed mindset that we're given as a child, right? Don't say anything if you can't say something nice, right?
Right.
We got the limiting pieces that encourage us to be decent people, but there's got to be a structure, a strategy to be decent, right? And parents typically do that, especially if they have more than one child. But even just with one child, it's still its own challenge, right?
Yeah.
So with that, you'll have that stuff that it's all great, right? If you don't have anything nice, don't say anything at all. I get that. Now, I know the other side of that. It actually is incredibly chaotic because it can damage the way that we develop ourselves. But it also limits people from just going around being jerks because they're told early on not to be a jerk, right?
Right.
So that stuff adds into the creation of limitations over time because you're not given the adult version of it. You get to hold on to the child's version of it because nobody changes it over time or helps you evolve it into. Because I can tell you right now that if you need to be a jerk to disrupt somebody who's harming themselves, whether that harm to themselves is in their community standing, the way that people know them, we all know that person that is just an asshole,
Yep.
right? And you know they're not a bad person, but the way they communicate really just comes off as like, dude, you're a dick, you know, or this is why you're single, or this is why you're this, or whatever it is. And you got it. If don't say anything unless you have something nice to say, can become its problem there, because this person's going to continue to be a jerk.
Yep.
Now, from personal experience, there's one person that you do know him actually. I'm not going to mention his name right now,
Yeah,
but he's a mutual friend of ours.
Okay.
And he's our friend, the one that we had mentioned earlier, the one I lived with Adam. It's a mutual friend of his.
Yep.
And this person is a pathological liar.
Yeah.
I don't do well with pathological liars without calling them out, because I know that they need an eruption. Because if not, that's the trajectory, and no one's going to save them if no one interrupts it, because they're not going to save themselves. Almost guarantee it's why it's pathological. Like, I'm not saying that I'm diagnosing this guy, by the way. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. That's not my role. But that is, by description of everything I understand about it, that is in the lineup. I wouldn't be surprised if he was given that diagnosis. I called him Loki because he is the god of lies. The guy always lies about everything.
Right.
But knowing him, it's like seeing through his lies, you know he's a good guy. But because of his lies, he's layered upon layered upon layered upon layered of just screwing people over. But he's not screwing them over for personal gain in the sense of money. He's not doing it for reasons that give him an advantage or ahead of everybody else. He's lying to fit in.
Yeah.
So, and I see somebody who's hurting, that has been hurting for so long, and I wanted to interject, but I was sworn not to do it. Like, I agreed to the stipulations from a friend not to call this guy out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where those limiters can be problems, because no one's going to be able to reach that guy if they don't do it.
Right.
It's not going to happen by accident.
No.
You know? So we do have those limitations, and those limitations come with emotional restrictions, which just does not let us grow. So hearing that, and then you had this stuff add up to the point that 24 months ago, something clicked and you realized it was time to change.
Oh, 100%.
Do you mind talking about what clicked, or do you want to just go right into what changed?
No, I'm you know, I mean.
By the way, everybody, this is Justin's first recording.
Yeah.
And he's doing great.
Thanks,
if it seems like he's nervous or anything, he is.
Yeah, I am. So,
And-
sorry.
But he wants to share, and he wants to be able to get this
sure.
out there.
So, Chad, I mean, we've been friends for a long time, and
11 years apparently.
Yeah. So, for those of you that this is a first experience, I mean, full transparency. 24 months ago, life didn't look real good. I would tell you that financially, I was in despair. Health, I was in despair. Emotionally, I was in despair. And when I say despair, I mean that's a vague term. I mean, let's keep it real. I mean, we're talking overnights in a hospital. We're talking psychiatric help. We're talking possibly financially losing my home. That sort of stuff. And it just, I had a good friend, real good friend, come to me and say, would you consider getting some help, talking to somebody? And I did. I realized pretty quickly that my path was one of self-destruction. And it needed to change. Now, the change, and this is really important. The change wasn't easy. It wasn't enjoyable. But damn it, man, it was worth it. I mean, majorly worth it. I don't even recognize the same guy that I was 48, 24 months ago, whatever it was. I don't. You know, um, you know, the reality of the situation, as harsh as this may sound, is that life's going to come at you. The world's going to come at you. Ain't nobody coming to save your ass. It's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you either wake up and you be a champion of your own life for your purposes, or you become a victim. And I'll be honest. I mean, let's be completely sure. I was a victim for a number of years. I'm not afraid to say it. You know, if you walked up to me in public and said, you know, you're an asshole, justified or not, I mean, it burdened me for days, weeks, months.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, like, that's a victim. You can't be a victim. Like, please don't be a victim. You know?
I could add something too.
Yeah,
not
sure.
to derail it, but
Yeah.
I've shared that same thing, right? It's what it is it's on the trait of conscientiousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what it is just a higher scale value in conscientiousness, which means that you're going to take consideration to what's being said.
Sure.
What I've done to help work with that, because again, I come from that too. You know, I was the guy that if I was sitting at a table with you, I'd do everything I could to make you like me, because I just didn't want to be disliked. You know,
Yeah.
and I want to connect with people, and I've always wanted to. What I've done is I've gone through a self-evaluation. Under what standpoint do you have to refer to me being an asshole, right? Why is it that it's justifiable to make such a statement? And then to do self-checks. Like, what did I do? What's the occurrence? How would that work? Now, I'm not saying this is not the platinum rule. This is the golden rule concept, right? Do unto others as you would want done to yourself. So it's like, okay, well, what is it that I may have done to cause this person to say this to me? And what it did is it started freeing me of the burden that would be a carryover. You know, it used to be an analysis, a paralysis by analysis thing. Now it's not that at all. I just go through it. And if I have an accusation about somebody else's behavior, I first ask me if I'm that. Am I complaining about something about me? Is this me am I my complaint?
Yeah.
You know, so like realizing you have people that would likely score very high on the narcissistic traits, you know, that, you know, could move them towards an actual diagnosis for it. I first ask, do I exhibit those same characteristics or any other characteristics that would be associated with it?
It's a great practice.
Right.
It
And
really
it's
is.
quick.
Yeah.
Too. It's not a long process.
No.
You know, so it's not like I have to sit there, you know, retreating from the world because you get called 5 times you're an asshole. Yeah, we have 5 different people to assess that by. It's
Right.
that's not it. It's just, okay, you said it, what is it based off of? And just truly being deeply honest with yourself. And it gives a workable tool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so this is the challenges that you had. Whenever it came to, did you have it pinpointed exactly what the behaviors were that had you end up in the hospital overnights? Anything that you're open to sharing or anything that's
sure.
like pinpointable?
I mean, it's it goes. I wouldn't say there's any one,
Mm-hmm.
but
Compounding.
I would say that there's a domino effect,
Okay.
right? Depression,
Mm-hmm.
which ultimately turns into alcoholism.
Okay, coping mechanism against depression. So drink
100%,
to
yeah.
combat it.
And then you start shutting down
Mhm.
physically. If you stay up all night,
Lack of sleep.
having adult beverages, then you're not visiting, your community. You're not out there getting that workout in. You're not out there socializing, that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah, you know what I hear also is like it's when something like that happens, the depression comes on because the depression is misalignment or malalignment with your goals. Uh, and then you've got a coping mechanism like alcohol.
Yeah.
And then you've got late nights where you're drinking, but you're drinking alone. You're actually retracting from the world with the excuses you've given yourself about what's going on in your life. And then now you're creating an echo chamber in yourself, and you've retracted to your home where it's even more detrimental.
Correct.
Because you're not able to escape your thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? And if you don't know how to self-motivate to break yourself of those patterns, it's almost like getting into quicksand. Right? Because depression is like a quicksand in itself.
It is.
And add in the coping mechanism, which is a physical depressant that also has mind-altering capacities, and then ruminating on problems you're dealing with. On top of that, the alcohol effects, lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're up late drinking, you still got to keep up with your job if you got it, right? And then your performance at work goes down, more reasons to be upset with yourself or the world, and continue to contract back into a reclusive life. Don't have other people to come in to give you little spikes of joy or some sort of inspiration or something that bonds to say, I care about you, my community's here, or your community's here for you.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a downward spiral.
It is.
Right?
Very much.
And it
Very
makes
much.
sense why it would lead you to like physically shutting down. Well, your will for life is dropping.
It is.
So then you have less of the feel goods, less endorphins. Cortisol becomes a negative for you, not a positive, which people also think cortisol is bad. No, it's not. It's a moving, waking hormone. It's just in excess it becomes a problem. And that also is triggered by stress. So you're sitting around stress, cortisol's through the roof. Your body can't even recover right because you don't give it enough of the parasympathetic system with melatonin to reduce it so you can repair. You're not getting any of those things. You're wearing yourself out, and it's a matter of a crisis coming along as a disease, most likely. And it could just be the disease of community where nobody likes you. Right? Being an asshole is also, by the way, is a disease of community.
Sure.
And let's say an unnecessary asshole. If you have motive behind your asshole that actually works for community, there's another thing.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the way of truly communicating that to support community, you're not going to be known as doing it for the right reasons. Even if you change people's lives to the positive, you're still the asshole versus the virtuous asshole, right? Which is, I did that because it was going to help you.
Yeah.
But not a lot of people that. Most people are like, you hurt me, so therefore I deserve to hurt you.
Right.
Or I just don't like the way you look.
Right.
Anyway, not to digress any
No,
further.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but I can see how overcoming that challenge is a massive contribution to your emotional space and emotional maturity, because that's not an easy thing to untangle yourself from.
No.
And you found your way of untangling yourself because you went through therapy or you got with a counselor or somebody.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, it was, I saw somebody very, very, very briefly, though. It was a lot more self-directed, if I'm being honest. There was just a point in time where, you look in the mirror and you say, look, like, this isn't the human being that I was born to be. This isn't the guy or gal, for that matter. This isn't the person that I came into this world to exist by. It was a road. I mean, there were lessons, and I would say lessons that to this day continue. The minute you think that you're completely conquered, I mean, life has its tendency to kind of put you back in your place. The transformation has been surreal. What I would tell you is that life starts for me every morning at 4 a.m. I would tell you that I just turned 50 years old, and I'm in the best shape of my life. and that's coming from a guy that was a varsity athlete through college. I would tell you professionally that I am doing about twice as well as I ever have been in 25 years of professional service. Emotionally, um, you know, the amount of relationships that I've been a part of that have just really developed. You know, when you have a friend of 30 years and she decides to pick up the phone one day and just say, you know what, dude, I'm really proud of you. I mean, I don't know what you say to that necessarily, other than like an obvious thank you, but it's a big deal, you know, and those are victories that you know should be shared, should be cherished. So
Absolutely. You know, it's obviously what's obvious to me, and I'm sure that people watching also can feel this too, is that it's the phoenix, right? Here's the thing with the phoenix. You know, the phoenix burns to ash and then it comes back anew, right? It's the eternal creature.
yeah,
And the thing about it is that it's not done once, it's done at once. It's the reinventing of yourself is what the phoenix is representative of. And sometimes you get into that reinvention of yourself, and then it gets to a certain point. It's like, no, I got to go back to ashes again. But the skills and who I know myself to be in this uprising, or this rising from the ashes, is now going to the next version of me, and it's this continuation. No, because that's another thing. Most people are like, oh, the phoenix rises one time. It's just you reinvented yourself, you're good to go. That's not been my experience of life, and a lot of people that I know that have actually have great degrees of success in any of the 8 areas, they've hit that time over several times.
sure,
But the skills to bring yourself out of the ashes is the thing that you hold on to, that you really cherish in the second, third, fourth, because you're getting better and better at it.
yeah,
That's that reinventing. So, you know, it's a beautiful thing to go through the process, but not when you're in the process, usually. You know, most of the time it's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm panicking. My pulse is racing. My palms are sweaty. Don't worry, I'm not doing an Eminem, you know, verse here.
yeah. No,
I'm not singing a song here, but, you know, nothing about mom spaghetti. But, you know, it's just this process of living. And we've been taught, and however we're influenced to believe, because people are unique to the way they come to certain beliefs, but we have a belief that if you do something wrong, we should hide it and be ashamed of it. We have do it right the first time or brag about it. We have all kinds of craziness that's out there. We don't have people that are really encouraging us to fail up. You know, it's like don't quit your day job, like
Yeah.
those kind of statements.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
or this just isn't for you.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now. Look at the entire spectrum of music. Now, if you were to take anybody and that has mastered a specific area of music and put them into a different genre, see how well they do. You know,
Probably not well.
recently
Right.
Beyonce tried going to country. I'm
Oh.
sorry, I don't like it. I don't think she did a very good job, and I'm not knocking her to say don't keep trying. I think that it was pushed too heavily, as if it were supposed to land immediately. And it's going to take a lot more practice if she wants the genre of country music. She's got to keep trying. I'm not saying don't stop. I'm not telling her to stop.
Right.
But she tried it. Michael
Right.
Jordan went from basketball and tried baseball
Sure.
and was not a star athlete in baseball.
No.
But it doesn't mean he couldn't have gotten better. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to be the Michael Jordan of baseball. And what I mean by he would obviously be the Michael Jordan of baseball because it's him, right? But he wouldn't be the best athlete at it necessarily.
Right.
But he would have gotten a whole hell of a lot better if he would have just stuck with it.
Yep.
You know, the thing is, sometimes when we start something, the version of bad that you experience with it is not what you'll be if you keep going.
Right.
You'll hit that tipping point. And that tipping point is where you get I'm making more than double of what I've ever made in my professional life.
Right.
I'm that much better at this now.
Right.
Failing up,
Right.
right? And
Yep.
make it failing up can be a game. I have one video that I put out where I did an impersonation of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was telling a story about something in the past, right? And it was something I did with this company. They did seminars, all this, and I was one of the participants. And I don't do a good Arnold Schwarzenegger, by the way. It's a bad one. It's a bad version.
Okay.
But I enjoy doing it because it's just bad. But I also like karaoke. I'm not any good at it to my standards, but I enjoy it, and I've gotten better. But it's not like I don't plan to be a professional singer. I'm not. That's not an ambition of mine.
Right.
I just enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
You know. But what does that do? Is it puts me into a practice of standing in something I'm not that good at, willing to let people ridicule me over it, and have fun when I'm doing it, so that is transferable into other parts of my life where you don't have guidance to teach you that type of model of thinking. You just have if you can't do math, you suck. If you can't sell a product, you suck. You know, it's those categories of thinking. Well, I have a way of transitioning because I take something that I'm not that good at, but I enjoy, and then I put it into something that I'm not that good at, but I can make it something I enjoy, and it makes me practice it more.
But I will tell you, Chad, like, and I think you bring up a really valuable point there, like something one of the other hurdles that I personally had to go through. So maybe you're not good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need more practice at it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe someone might ridicule
Mm-hmm.
you for it because those people are out there.
Oh,
unfortunately.
absolutely.
That shouldn't stop you.
Absolutely not.
Like that can't be like those ridiculing people. They're doing that for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and it probably in most circumstances isn't about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about them.
Yeah.
You know, and I had to learn that myself.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I the whole unraveling, happened because I mean, I don't want to make excuses here, but I got tangled up with some toxic people. Is the bottom line, and I didn't have that insight, so you gotta be a champion for you, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you gotta do what's right by you.
Mm-hmm.
That's not meant to be self-centered. That's not meant to not be considerate to the folks in your life and the people around you. But unfortunately, man, there's also a point in time where like you got to take the trash out.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say trash, I'm talking about human beings, unfortunately. So there's points in time where there's toxic people entering your life that don't belong. So.
Yeah. Well, for every personality, there's another type.
Absolutely.
And some of those personalities can be detrimental, like parasites in their own way.
Correct.
Not categorizing everybody that way, or people that are going through things. You'll also have people that need help and they don't know how to ask for it, and they've learned how to live life in a way that at least works, and it's at somebody else's cost. Sure. But they don't come from wanting to live off other people as much as they just want to survive. Right. And they're in a survival model that is kind of parasitic.
Sure.
Right? Something else that comes to mind is when you see somebody practicing, and you're like, for the viewers here, if you're 30 minutes into this and it's a brand new practice for you and somebody else witnesses it, that's the equivalent of being an infant. You have no real exposure to life in that particular practice. So if you've got 2 hours worth of singing experience and then you go up and do karaoke, as an example, the person that says, you suck, boo, get off stage, well, the reality is that's how they would talk to a toddler in that, right? Like the equivalent value is you have 2 hours worth is, what? How much time of living life do you have that is representative of? So if you're sitting there and you're holding this entire concept of what you think is to be a good demonstration of that particular thing, and somebody's trying, and they're just out there trying, and you're like, okay, well, you suck, you shouldn't try anymore. Like, you're a crab in a bucket.
Yep.
No, and a crab in a bucket is not something you want to be because it tears everyone down.
Yep.
And it tears people down where you feel that if you're that person, you'll tear people down where you feel like you have some sort of authority or some sort of reason. By the way, you can't be a critic without positioning yourself as some kind of authority. Mm-hmm. Right? Why you wouldn't speak up if you didn't feel like you had some position. Right?
No.
So critics come from the idea that they have an authority, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you're sitting there criticizing somebody, you're coming from a position you have authority. Now, it could be just in the consumption of it, but if you're out watching karaoke, you don't really, you should know when you go in to watch it, unless it's a professional thing, which then those people have enough practice that they're there cultivating their diamond, right? They're there polishing that diamond up. Not the people that's the lump of coal to find out there's a diamond inside of it.
Right.
Same concept for anything. If you're overweight and you're at the gym, whoever's ridiculing you, they have the direct mirror of their reflection of what their criticisms. So if they're saying, "Why are you trying? You're overweight and you're ridiculous and you're sad," well, that's a reflection of themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's not that they're overweight and they're sad; they're just immature, and that they have the maturity of. And then you put it into an age group, which is where you would hear those types of statements. 6-year-olds make those statements. 7, 8. Kids do say some pretty harsh stuff. Yeah. And I'd look at it and be like, "Okay, well, you're a 5-year-old."
Right.
You're an adult, you have credit cards, you have your own car, you have your own place, whatever it may be.
Yeah. But
you are the representative of a 5-year-old in this category.
Yeah.
Now, if you've made that criticism about somebody else in my presence, I'm going to put you in that category.
Sure.
Now, I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm just putting that category so I know that I don't need to give that much credibility to what you have to say in those types of areas, because I know that you have quick, harsh judgment and you don't have a lot of depth of thinking. Because you're putting that kind of judgment and ridicule onto somebody else. But I'm not also saying I'm righteous either, because I'm not. I come from it has me be less critical of you, right. But I'll share it. And if I'm less critical and I share with you,
yep. It's
more likely to get through the gates of Troy,
yeah.
And become something that can truly help make a change for you. Because that's my thing.
Yeah, right.
I'm a renegade for change.
Absolutely, and I mean, just to clarify, I mean, the folks that I referenced, I mean, I don't know that they're bad people. Mm-hmm. I do know that, there was, I know for a fact that there were instances of upbringing issues. Mm-hmm. I do know for a fact that there's instances of, alcohol abuse. Mm-hmm. I'm incredibly sympathetic.
Yeah. You said to quarantine them.
Yeah.
Right. You had to remove them far enough for you to heal and recover.
Yeah. Correct. And and to this day, I mean, I feel for them. It's a lot. They're kind of living in a lifestyle that's full of a bunch of lies, and I don't know that they're ever gonna come through that.
I always refer to that as the pressure cooker.
Yeah.
It's not your job to take them out of the pressure cooker.
No.
They will be in there as long as they let themselves be in there.
That's correct.
You've removed yourself from it because you hit your tolerance level and where it became a negative on your health. Correct. And that's typically where the line is.
Yeah.
But the thing with me is find the Thrive model, which is not just to survive, like moving away from them for survival. Thrive model is move away from them so you survive, but you're also assessing what got you there in the first place. What you can do, possibly even to help them. And I'm not saying go back out and then hurt yourself again either. But you don't necessarily have to help them as much as how to work with people in the future when you're setting new relationship standards, and you're creating new relationships of whatever type. You now know from your previous experience, if you start seeing specific things, what to talk about and how to navigate those.
100%. Yeah.
And not to accumulate too many people, because one person can be hard enough, but if you have multiple people and they're part of your structure, your support structure, you could really feel lost whenever you realize that those people are not there for your benefit.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least at that time, they're extracting more than you can actually stabilize yourself with.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's enough, which is another thing about you that I also identified, that you do have the desire for growth and for self betterment. But this is not the type of self development that is kind of the yogi approach, or the I need to find a guru or whatever. This is teaching you that you are the person that'll make your life different. There's no cavalry coming,
No.
right? You are the cavalry.
Yep.
And how to, when you've reached that level where you're stable, how to work with other people, is you don't want to enable anybody.
No.
And a lot of us, when we've learned a new skill set or we've developed something in us, a lot of us want to share that in such a way that we're actually wanting to do it for other people. You know, and a good mentor won't do that. They will show people how to do it. They'll do it with them, but you don't do it for them.
Right.
And when you do it, it's the scaffolding technique. You get them to a proficiency level, you back off enough, you let them do it so that they don't get overwhelmed with stress because they're doing something still new to them. You back off again a little bit more when you see those proficiencies increasing. You're allowing them to have enough of the challenges that those skills are required to actually have to fortify them, until you get to the point that you can completely let them go in that area because they're self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process, and you can do that moving forward because you have the history of these other relationships to build from.
Yeah.
And you've quarantined them effectively enough that you're not just surviving anymore. You're now you're in a category of thriving in several areas, right? Financially, you're thriving. In your business, you're thriving, right? Emotionally, you're in a much stronger position.
Yeah.
Probably in that same, right? You're thriving in that model as well. At times, if not at all, the whole time.
Yeah.
So, but know that new challenges will come,
Oh, absolutely.
and cherishing your growth will give you the ability to handle those new challenges.
100%.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, you don't even look at them the same.
No.
Yeah. You know, they're 100%.
That's the thing that I like to reference too when I talk about Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Is every time that you avoid a challenge, you create chaos, right? You put it in the Pandora's box.
Oh, sure.
When you start to take things out of Pandora's box because you're in a position you can actually grow through things and you know how to take on challenges, you'll take the challenge out. Like, you just open it up enough to let a challenge out,
Yeah.
right? Which is the equivalent of, I haven't talked to somebody like this in a while, or I haven't talked to this person. Call them up, right? You're like, okay, well, you know it's going to be some degree of chaos because that's where you left it.
Yeah.
But you learn how to overcome it and create a lesson, but you're also giving a lesson to the other person. Makes you stronger overall.
Sure.
Well, that colossus that is associated with the goals you have in life is coming. You just don't know when it's going to show up. So for every one of those phone calls that you make, or every one of those little pieces of chaos that you've taken on and learned the lesson, it's armoring you up. It's getting you to the point you can take Colossus on.
Yeah.
Because behind Colossus is something else, and it's typically bigger.
Yeah.
It's typically nastier.
Yeah.
Right? But that's because behind it is more of your goal in life.
Hey.
Unless you want a really small life and no goals, and then you're just existing. But I don't know anyone that way.
I don't
You
know.
know? So that's the beauty of Pandora's box, by the way I teach it, is, okay, we're going to make that call. You're going to take a little bit of that chaos out, and you're going to become more equipped with dealing with it. Before you know it, there's nothing left in the box.
Right.
It is everything in the box now is all lessons you stacked.
Yeah.
And then every time that new challenge shows up, you're like, okay, what else have I gone through so far? Let me open the box up. Look at all those lessons. I got this, man.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not that it's not going to be a challenge,
Yeah.
but
sure.
you're equipped. You know,
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
your horse now. You got your armor. You got the best sword. You got everything you need to take it on. You
Yeah.
know, you got an army of people from community of the ones that you've won over, the ones you've helped develop and grow, and now you got people willing to go with you to go face it.
Yep.
You know, whatever those challenges are. That's
Yeah.
where I'm at, is like by coming up with that community, is that we're going after the Colossus. We're going after the Titans.
Well, and you know, to your point, I mean, that all starts right here.
Yeah.
I mean, it you know, like, you can't, I know we've already said this,
Mm-hmm.
but there isn't someone coming to save you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there isn't someone that's going to come, like, walk you through. Like, you know, at some point, you know, as a grown adult, you have to be in a place where you're like, look, like, I have my shield, I have my armor, I've got my horse, I've got my sword. and I'm gonna knock down that door, you know. And when I knock down that door, I'm not gonna let somebody knock me down
Mhm.
for lack of, you know. So, but yeah, absolutely. Life's, I mean, for those of us that like don't know, life's not easy, right? I mean, life's gonna have its challenges. It's got its disease. It's got its, you know, it's got its relationships. I mean, shit. I mean, hey, Florida, it's got its hurricanes, right? I mean, shit's gonna happen. It's it's a matter of time and when. It's not about getting knocked down so much because you're gonna get knocked down. Everybody does. You know, it's about your reaction to get knocked down. That's what it's all about, man. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
So we've got, and you're absolutely right. It's life's going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. It's how well you steady yourself against challenges, or how well you steady yourself against the storm. So we've got emotion.
yeah,
What's another area that you've considered as the strength? You did mention earlier physically you're in the best shape of your life. Is there
Yeah.
another one of the 8 areas that you consider to be, excuse me,
spiritually, I would say.
so purpose or spirituality?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You know, those three jump out at me for
Okay.
sure.
So physical, and then emotion, and spirituality or purpose.
Sure, sure.
Okay. So what's so for spirituality or purpose? By the way, for anybody who's never heard me talk about spirituality or purpose, for me, the 8th area of maturity is spirituality / purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose is just what you're here for. What are you doing? What are you
Yeah.
making your life mean? And you can find that through spirituality. You can find that through religion. You can find that through a lot of things. But
Yeah.
when your purpose is more like a spiritual practice to you, you've really hit that area of maturity, right? Like you're going into a thrive version of that. So, do you have something specific that would say, "Hey, I've got my vehicle, if you will, or the purpose," or how would you say, like, how would you line that one up for us?
Yeah, it's a fair question. You know, I would lean back on what we've talked about already.
Contribution to community.
Yeah, correct,
Okay.
correct.
So we've got community in this bad boy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, I've seen both sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
As much as I would prefer to have not lived on the dark side of the coin,
Mm-hmm.
I did. But I'm also fortunate enough to have come out the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So, that being the case, there's a there's a there's a duty that I at least perceive to feel like that needs to be shared.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a point here where like whatever goodness that I came through, like there's got to be somebody else out there that could use it, that could benefit from it. You know, in part that's why I'm here even today, right? I'm hoping that me sitting here blabbering, someone's catching it a little bit. Even if I am nervous and not exactly articulating myself in the best manner that I can, but I mean, you hope that there's a point where you can touch somebody, and it doesn't need to be a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
If I touch like if I can turn one human being around into a positive, it's worth it.
Absolutely.
I mean, we talked about this already, but it's like, you're at the gym, right? And you see a bunch of fit people, and then you see the person that's 100 pounds overweight, man, that's the person you want to walk up to and fist bump, man. Like, cause at the end of the day, they're there.
Yeah.
They did the hard part. They've shown up.
Yeah.
If they keep showing up, they're gonna figure it out.
Yep.
I don't give a shit what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, it's the consistency of the factor that matters.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Be the mentor that people don't realize that you are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't have to actually be overly active in it. You can do the same thing. Just walk up and give them a little piece of inspiration and be like, "You got this."
Yeah.
Right. Actually, that does fall into more of a mentor category.
Yep.
Right. Because as soon as you give them a little piece of inspiration, you might have also taught them something.
100%. I think you do.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
why not? Right.
Yeah.
So, and from what I'm understanding so far with the spirituality side of it, purpose,
Mm-hmm.
you're still kind of refining it, but you're figuring out. You know that you're very centered on the fact that your life means more now. You have more purpose in what you're doing, and you're figuring out how to give that to people.
Absolutely.
Right? How to help them so that you can see the world a better place because you're here.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and that's where like finding purpose, once you understand the vehicle that your purpose can get around in, then you can start really dressing it up and making it really attractive to other people without even really trying.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you have a way of speaking about it. Like in business, you create a mission statement, right?
Yeah.
And that gives people purpose to align behind.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Just because it's not necessarily defined as well yet, doesn't mean that that's not an area of strength for you. It just means that you're putting it together, but you feel very centered on it, right? You know you have something you're working on,
Mm-hmm.
and you're definitely out for it. And I admire that about you because you've been through your own hell,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'd say you've found your way in a form of kind of like Dante's Inferno, but it was in the relationship category.
Oh,
right?
sure.
Which,
Yeah.
as we discussed a little bit more before, I don't want to out you in an area that you consider to be kind of a weakness, but
Yeah.
I would like to take that conversation on
Sure.
if you're open to it now.
Yeah, sure.
So, and I'll complete the Dante's Inferno conversation piece after, if you want to talk about that, just to let everybody know, kind of like, because the way I like to do this is in these interview processes is pick two areas of strength and then
Yeah.
find the weakness.
Yeah.
An area that you would say is a weakness.
Sure.
And then give the maturity categories that associate itself with the weakness.
Okay.
So, would you like to share what your weakness is?
Yeah. So, I mean, relationships for sure. I mean, I would say that I define the categoristic that bridesmaid 100 times over, bride not.
Right.
I've got relationships with folks that Chad being one of them, to be honest. I mean, 12, 15, 20, 30 years, I mean, I've been the best man at a wedding 6 times. I've been, a godfather to a child 4 times. That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so, I'm not a righteous asshole, is I guess the word where I'm trying to go. But as it pertains to, my own, romantic girlfriend, I fail. I'd be the first to tell you that it took me a while, longer than most, to mature. I would tell you that I'm relatively on the side of shy as it pertains to women that I would be attracted to. I think I'm getting better, but it's a weakness. I mean, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's where I'm at.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's the typical nice guy issue,
right.
right? Like it's like, when you're a really, really nice guy, you really do have like a genuine desire that other people have the best life they could have.
Yeah.
When you get into the romantic relationships, there's other things that come with that, right? Because for your friend, you'll do X. For your girlfriend, you'll do additional, right?
Right.
What I've found is, and what I've seen you go through, is what I would consider to be kind of. Are you familiar with Dante's Inferno?
No,
Okay.
not necessarily.
Dante took himself to hell to save the woman that he loved.
Okay.
Okay, he went through the what is it, the 9 layers of the 11. Anyway, I'll brush up on this, but he goes through every level of hell to get to her.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful story, right? But it is intense. So here's the thing that really sucks is when you go to it, like when you go through your Dante's Inferno, and the woman that you're after is a false love, right? The woman you're after is not looking for the same type of relationship you are.
Mm-hmm.
She's gone to hell, and you followed her.
Yeah.
And then you get to her, you get to the point you can save her, and you realize she doesn't want you to save her.
Right.
And what does that do to you in the relationship category whenever it comes to the next one?
Well, when you're all in, I mean, it destroys you.
Absolutely. Because
Yeah.
when you go all in, that means the foundation of the house that you are is also in jeopardy.
Yep.
Because if they're not there to help hold it together with you, then it's fractured. And when it's fractured, everything beneath it and around it now has the ability to take it out.
Yep.
Right? And you got nothing but its own additional hell to pay.
Yep.
And what does that do for future opportunities? Once bit, twice shy, right?
Sure.
Thank you, Def Leppard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the point of it is that, so how do we overcome this? Well, relationships, especially speaking about intimate relationships, categories of maturity are going to be community, emotion, and sexuality. Those are the 3 bases. A community is that it's of somebody other than you, right? So that's another person that still falls into a category of community. Community means you have to learn how to get along with other people in a way that works. And the more mature you are in community, the more you're able to create relationships that work in that category. And that's all types of relationships. But you have to have the fundamentals of community in order for an intimate relationship to work, because you need to know how to work with another person.
Sure.
Then you have emotion. Well, emotion means you know how to be stable in those relationships. At the same time, you know how to hold stability with your partner. And if your partner finds that they're not stable, they're destabilized for whatever reason, you have the ability to continue to stay stable so you don't react that actually makes it worse for them.
Yep.
And then sexuality. If you have an intimate relationship, you damn sure better be considering exactly how mature you are in sexuality, because that can ruin it all too. That's where you create relationships of roommate status.
Yeah.
Right? So any one of those, it's like a fire. You have to have the certain circumstances in order for a fire to work, right?
Yeah.
Fuel source, oxygen, heat, right? Take any one of those 3 out, you're going to lose the fire.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Same thing with a relationship. So you take any one of those out, you may keep the sex, but let's say you don't have the community piece, but you have the emotion and the sex. Well, now you have a reason for them to see somebody else.
Yep.
Because the community piece or the emotion piece, right? So if you want the monogamous relationship, you're going to need to build it on the right foundation. And if you don't have that built in yourself, don't expect somebody to fix it.
Yep.
Because the cavalry ain't coming.
No.
And if somebody is offering to fix it, what do they want in exchange?
Right.
And a lot of people, if you say, what do you want in exchange for working with me here? Most of them are going to tell you, I don't want anything. I just care about you. Because that's where they're aware, but that does not mean the depth of their motives are even present to them.
Right.
I just want you to love me.
Right.
That's very common. But what does love mean if you don't define the damn word?
Right.
Right? You're not going to find something you can't define. It's a lottery opportunity. And even then, cherish what you got. The same finance, I use the lottery thing for just an example. What do you call well, I wouldn't say it necessarily, but we'll just go with this anyway. What do you call somebody who's a millionaire that can't get back to being a millionaire again after they've lost it?
I don't know.
A lottery winner.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because they don't have the business acumen. They didn't develop that part of them. They did it by chance by going to buy the ticket.
Yeah.
But they don't have the skill sets necessary with the business and finance understanding and maturity to build that.
Right.
So they are lottery winners.
Very.
Well, lottery winners is in all a category. Sometimes the person strikes it rich, or somebody hits. Sometimes somebody hits the jackpot.
Yep.
But if you spend the rest of your life trying to hit the jackpot again, the roulette wheel isn't that forgiving.
No.
Some people win twice.
Right.
But you know what? Also, some people get struck by lightning,
Right.
and some people get struck twice.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it comes to relationships, the way that I've grown to understand relationships and matured myself to understand them is that it's all about you working on you and be the person that you want to date.
Sure.
Be the person that you would marry.
Absolutely.
And if you can't be the person that you, by the way, what I mean by that is every characteristic and trait value that you value in having a partner,
Yeah.
be that.
Yep.
I'm not saying throw on a wig and some makeup and do a little cookie dance in the mirror and hope that people fall in love with you.
Why not?
Right? Well, I don't know if you would find you that attractive. You probably want somebody a little more feminine, right?
Right, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
so, God, that actually opens a door for a whole other conversation, but not for now. But the point is that in relationships, that's more of what it is. But most people say, well, like they use the common sense clause.
Yeah.
You know what that is. Everybody knows what it is.
Sure.
I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And why I have the development that I have when it comes to relationships is because that's a tenet of it. There's no common sense category for me in a relationship. I won't do that to another person. By the way, to claim common sense is a real asshole position to hold. Mm-hmm. No matter how much you think it's not, say whatever it is that you just claim common sense to in front of that person. Let them know you just ridiculed them in that way.
Yeah.
And see if you don't feel like you're an asshole. And if you don't feel like you're an asshole and you don't have a way of teaching a lesson in a way that actually the other person is able to work on it and their consent to do it, I would ask you to ask the question of yourself again, am I an asshole? Look, the world does need assholes.
Yeah.
The same as the world needs bacteria that doesn't necessarily represent the best health for us.
Right.
But it doesn't mean death because of exposure. It just means you're going to have to learn to deal with that type of personality. Yep. The same as the bacteria. Your body learns to deal with that kind of bacteria.
Yeah.
To finish this thought, and I'll throw it back over to you, the digestive tract.
Yeah.
The balance that's in the digestive tract of bacteria that is considered to be a healthy balance is 80% good bacteria, contributory to positive or desirable health, 10% benign, no direction, it doesn't have a positive or negative, it's just there. It does help code the immune system, but it doesn't really have any kind of agitation necessarily. But your body identifies that as being non-harmful. And 10% bad, harmful. Mm-hmm. It's 10%, so your immune system has the ability to handle it and manage it, but it's also coding against it. So you consistently have the right immunity when that bacteria is present, especially if it has the opportunity to come in at a higher fluctuation than what it's currently at. Mm-hmm. Antibiotics knock down your digestive tract's bacteria if you don't properly foster that bacteria by taking good probiotics that actually match what you need. Mm-hmm. Then the bad bacteria could get in because the bad bacteria also has a benefit of it grows faster than the good bacteria.
It does.
So if your immune system isn't coded properly, that will allow it to grow into a condition called dysbiosis, which is an excess of bad bacteria or an imbalance in the digestive bacteria that can cause problems. Right?
Okay.
And then you get all kinds of cascading effects, and typically you fall into the pharmaceutical model. They don't actually address what the problem is. They go after the symptoms. The next thing you know, you're loaded up, but you could have just addressed that. Now, take it to the human being thing, not the bacteria, and the same thing for relationships. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm not an advocate of necessarily completely sending somebody off to the desert to never be interacted with ever again. Mm-hmm. It's more of quarantine them so they can't harm the resources you have while you repair yourself and you don't let yourself go to that again. But you've already built the profile with them of who they are and how they are. Yeah. And you keep them at enough of a distance to observe without interacting.
Right.
You can find out through friends, things like that. But I would suggest don't get into the ridicule of it, but present it as more of a study of a specific behavior. So that you can say, hey, I'm glad I'm not over there, so you have the benefit of being able to be separated from it and to continue to give yourself the reward of not letting that type of person in your life. But you also have the ability to continue to build your immunity against those people. Because as they evolve in their behaviors to try to get where they want to be in life, you're able to study it at the distance you can study it, so that you can see the evolved version of that. If it shows up in your life, you would not have recognized had you gotten rid of it.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely. You 100% have to be able to recognize it. I mean, I could not agree with you more. So, yeah.
So you don't run around throwing hand sanitizer.
No,
right?
No.
Because you don't want to kill off your potential for the immunities to develop, right?
Sure.
You know, so if you create too sterile of an environment, you'll create health problems.
100%.
Same thing in the relationships category, or dealing with other people.
Yeah.
But quarantine so you're safe.
Well, and I think there's a key to, like, you know, when a relationship does go bad, you know, there's narcissistic people,
Mm-hmm.
and they do a really good job of disguising it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know what you're looking at, you certainly can get rolled up in something you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an awareness associated for sure, where you're like, yeah, okay, and it can be subtle,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's, and I was one of them. Let's be honest. I mean, I was one of them, but there's a lot of people floating out there that recognize everything at face value, and I would encourage you not to do that. You know, there's a will and there's a reason for just about everything, and recognizing it is a big deal too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful benefit of having that ability.
Yeah.
You know? And what a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
But think about the actual cost that it takes every single time to reinvent. Or it's actually not reinventing. It is inventing new relationships because there's a banishing of the others.
Yeah.
Right. It's we're going to constantly have to build new relationships anyways. We meet new people.
Sure.
But in what type of relationship is it? And when it gets to the truly meaningful ones, the ones that are directly associated with, let's say, a tier 1 or tier 2 to your goals, and not like a tertiary to, you know, something in the distance, you know, just kind of an audience participant, if you will.
Right.
If you have to constantly create new profiles and you're just dismissing and avoiding all of the stuff from the past, going, I'll identify it. 10 years later, people change.
Yeah.
We're different now with social media than we were in the 90s.
Sure.
And with narcissism, we have more trait values being rewarded for narcissism through all of our social medias right now, because you are more important because somebody else wants something from you, and they don't have to have the relationship established. They just know what you want to put out, and everybody puts a filtered version of themselves out online.
Yep.
You know, how many people are real there? And even the ones that are trying to be real are still typically looking at it from, this is going to be a professional or not professional product. You know, that's why, even for myself, I'm transitioning into, I don't care how bad I look when I do this stuff. I'm practicing to get better. I am failing up. And I don't care when I tell people stories about what's happened in my life.
Sure.
I want to have that level of transparency in what I do with this, with the maturity project.
Yeah.
Because I have to be the shining example to the best that I can.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I don't want to dismiss people. There are people right now in my life I have quarantined.
Mm-hmm.
Because I cannot allow the influence that they bring into my life to affect me right now. But it doesn't mean they're permanently quarantined.
Right.
Every one of my Judases are currently in quarantine. I have 5 Judases in my life.
Okay.
3 professional, 2 personal.
Uh-huh.
And of
when you
those,
say Judas was...
like in the apostle Judas, the great betrayer of Jesus.
Okay.
So same concept.
Yeah, sure.
I went to extremes to support and help them, only to be stabbed in the back.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And to basically have my life forfeited for 32 pieces of silver.
Yeah, yeah.
If that's accurate, I've got to go back to find out if it's 32
Sure.
pieces, whatever.
No,
but still,
no,
to some sort of value that exceeds, that their cherished direction, it went at my cost.
Yeah.
And the same thing in my personal relationships as well. But It wasn't necessarily for the professional side. It was just the intention of personal satisfaction of the timelines that we interacted.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not putting them in the you're cast to hell category. I don't really cast anyone into hell.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you're going to be where I can be safe enough to rebuild myself.
Yeah.
But I thank you for the lessons, and I also have transitioned from. By the way, but I've said the Judas thing because that's what it has been for the longest time. But recently, I realized I was kissed by an angel.
Oh,
Right.
wow, that's
Yeah. So the hardship they brought was really an angel.
okay.
So instead of being the great betrayer, it was the ones that came along to help me understand, Chad, you're not on the right path.
Yeah. No, I'm with I share that
Yeah.
with you. To be honest, I share that.
Yeah.
You know, there's a sliver of this where like I was traveling down, you know, this life's path, and then shit hit the fan. But you know, if shit didn't hit the fan, I mean, then you don't grow.
Mm-hmm.
And the growth that I've come through on the other side is a much more complete
Mm-hmm.
human being, any which way you look at it.
Yeah.
Like it or not, it is. You know,
The worst part about shit hitting the fan is cleaning it up.
that's it. That's it. Yeah.
I mean, shit hitting the fan happens pretty quick, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
But it's the cleanup. It's like, God, I didn't realize it got over there.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, but
oh,
that's
yeah.
that self-assessment of like who you were that made it happen,
Yeah.
right? Where
Yeah.
if you're not willing to look at who you were to make it happen, that's where you just get it off of the obvious places.
Sure.
Yeah, or you just say, screw it, I'm going to let it stay there.
Yeah.
You know, and ignore it. You know,
Yeah.
survive is to clean it, ignore it is to let it stay, so the avoidance. Or the thriving is, I'm going through everything to find out why and how this happened.
And I think it's worth sharing this.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really any difference between the guy that walks down the street today versus the guy that walks down the street 6 years ago. I don't think there's really anything to notice that's different.
Mm-hmm.
It was all here.
It's who you be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just.
It's not in what you do, it's who you be. 'Cause
Yeah.
who you be changes what you do, but your outward appearance is still the same guy.
Yeah, absolutely. People get treated the same way. There's still like a massive level of kindness,
Mhm.
like, you know, all of that, silly, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the clarity.
Yeah.
That you know, that no one talks about. I don't want to say no. We're sitting here talking about it, but
Mm-hmm.
so many people don't.
Yeah.
You know.
What I would also say is for you is that I'd say that one of the things that came out of it is people will know if they connect with you. Because hardship typically, you have two ways to go with hardship. It either closes you off to the world or it opens you up to it. You're becoming more open to it, which means intimacy. Into you, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm sorry, into me, I see. Intimacy. But you see that through your relationship with another person.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, I would say that's something that you likely have grown more of, is the willingness to have intimacy with another person.
Sure.
Intimacy is not just sex. Intimacy is connection with another person.
Yeah.
The more you work on yourself, the more you develop yourself for who you are and what you're becoming, the more intimate you can be with people, because your confidence about yourself is greater and your ability to see the challenges other people go through become more identifiable.
Yeah.
And then you have the ability from there to be able to help support other people in their growth.
Yeah.
Which makes you a very powerful human being. You're a powerhouse when you get to that level. And you're on track. If you're not already there, which as we continue to get to know each other, you have one of the things about Justin is he has this real beautiful person about him. You can say it's his soul, you can say it's his heart, whatever you want to call it. But the person that I know him to be is still greater than who he knows himself to be. Because he's been telling me this entire time who he is, and since I've known him. But we don't always identify who we are from what we tell people we are. right? A lot of it's like almost like forcing other people to believe we feel we're a certain person, and you don't really have to force it because you are that person. But it's like too many people have misunderstood it because of their own needs. But when you meet somebody else who does this kind of work, they recognize it in you fast. It's very quick. And the people that I've asked to join me on this show, not just in interviews, but also in the process of growing and being a personality regularly shows up, is because they've been showing me who they are. And I see that that person has great value to others once that person comes to that full recognition of who they are. Now, it's a different kind of mirror. Now, it's not just to see yourself in the superficial world and the reflection of whether or not you need to part your hair or shave.
Yeah, right.
It's the who that person truly is deep down. And that's something that I guess you can say is kind of a gift of mine, is that I see who that person is through the layers of all their behaviors, and you can see it. Now, that as an undeveloped part of me has led me into a lot of, tumultuous, if you will, or turbulent relationships, but all of which I benefit and all of which I've grown through and helped create who I am. And you be one of those people. You're growing, you're developing, you're a great person. And that's one of the things that I am you're welcome, by the way. I'm incredibly grateful for you sharing on this show like you are, because that's something that the world will benefit knowing. Is there are a lot of people that will watch this over the years that will see themselves in you. And where you are, the lamp bearer that you are, you're carrying a lamp through the darkness of what it's like to be the person that you are. And you're illuminating the path for others to see. As you continue to forge yourself into that person, you're carrying a bigger lantern. More people can see so that they know the path.
I hope so. I really
we'll take
do.
hope out.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll take hope out.
All right.
The reason why I say that is because of who I know you to be and what we've discussed doing. Hope is desire without structure. And I promise you that this thing will create the structure to ride on.
That's awesome.
It's the ladder to climb.
That's awesome.
Right.
I love it.
And I won't create it. You will.
Okay.
But you'll create it through what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because that's your path, right?
Yeah.
I can't make your path for you. I'm
Sure.
making mine.
Okay.
Right? But my job is to help create more and more people like us. Because the Maturity Project gives all of that privilege. Because when you get your rudimentary, like the hierarchy of needs, when you get the base levels of all of your needs satisfied, you'll start to see things differently, and you'll see things through that spiritual direction, that purpose-driven direction. And my thing with the Maturity Project is let's use all of the 7 areas of maturity to facilitate the pyramid till they get to that 8th. And then they become a replication. Or it's not really a replication. They have access to what I see in the way that I am, and to the same with you. And there's other people that have outdone that. You don't have to have the Maturity Project for that. Just like spirituality does not require religion to get there.
Okay.
And purpose doesn't require religion or spirituality, but you can find it through those modalities. Same thing with this. And that's the intention for this entire process. So I'm looking forward to doing more of these with you.
Yeah, sounds great.
I do want to see you on the show more frequently.
Okay.
If not a regular co-host.
I hope so.
Secondary.
Yeah.
Do you have anything in closing to go over, or anything we want to kind of tie up that we've talked about?
I don't believe so, to be honest with you. I mean, if you do, I'm open. But nothing comes to mind.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. That's a great
okay.
show.
Okay.
Great recording.
Great.
Thank
you so much for having me.
Of course, Justin.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Well, you're a great person. And
Thank
I
you.
do see, it's almost like the soul gym that you are, if you want to use that reference. I mean, I use a lot of terms, and sometimes they stick, sometimes they don't. But it's that person that you are at the core that is so inspiring, right? Like, I hear from people often that I inspire them, but I don't ever share how often others inspire me in the same language.
Yeah.
So you inspire me. You're truly a good-hearted person.
Thank you.
And it's one of my goals is to get you out of the stereotypical nice guy without losing the nice guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it is the nice guy just needs to shift into I'm a nice guy until.
Right.
And then it's not necessarily I'm not a nice guy. You just will fall out of some of that favor, and you'll have to re-earn it.
Right.
And to create the reciprocal relationship process. The problem with the standard nice guys, they don't have that.
Yeah.
They're a nice guy to a fault, and they're boring, and they're all of that, right?
Yeah.
So in the beginning, it'd be great. It's comfortable. You've alleviated some of the challenges the person seeking the relationship has wanted.
Yeah.
Until the boredom sets in.
Right.
And you're not a boring person.
No.
That's the problem is though that the nice guy is the boring person.
Yeah.
So it's evolving the nice guy into the guy that isn't boring. You don't need to be the bad guy. You don't need to join a band and wear eyeliner the rest of your life. Whatever the hell it is. You don't need that. You don't need the switchblade. You don't need the switchblade, the leather jacket. You don't need to be James Dean. It's the creating the you that is magnetic.
Yeah.
Because your challenge that'll be coming soon is going to not let your success in relationships be your problem. Because that's the next step, and you'll have to make that decision when it comes along. Because then it's like, you go from scarcity to abundance.
Mm-hmm.
So managing that in a mature way is its own tactfulness. And
Right.
that's something that we'll be working through.
Well, yeah, we're going to have to talk that out.
Yeah.
For sure.
So for everybody that's watched, please put a comment in the comment section if you got something out of this you'd like to share. You are community, the same as we are. Our goal is to make a difference and to inspire. We're not here to give advice. We'll go over that conversation whenever people like. I'm not a fan of advice, and for a very good reason. I'll explain that at another time. Insights are my thing, and I love it whenever other people give their stories and their insights on their life, because that's a place that we can all find inspiration. So with that being said, thank you for watching today. Share this video with a person in your life that you'd like to start a meaningful conversation with. For the things you got out of the show, put in the comment section. You could shoot me an email as well if you'd like to get in touch with Justin, or would like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like any of the developmental products that we carry or services and programs that we have. Please send me an email at yourmaturityproject@gmail.com. That's YOUR maturityproject@gmail.com. Be happy to communicate with you and start something there. We are creating a lot of things. New Year's is coming around, so we do have a Fit Over 40 program that's going now. Really easy thing to get into, next to no cost, and there's a lot of support that comes with it. So when I say next to no cost, you're looking at about $20 a month. It's pretty great. As far as that goes, that's for other things. Just send us an email. We'll be happy to work with you on that, or put a comment in the comment section. We're happy with that as well. Justin, you can be reached. Do you have any method that you'd like to have people reach you at, or just go?
Yeah, sure. My email is justin dot ropele, and that's ROPELE @gmail.com. Reach out to me anytime. I'm also readily available on Facebook. Nothing strange about my profile there. Once again, Justin Ropele. But yeah, I encourage anybody that is seeking some feedback or would like to give me some feedback, please reach out anytime. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as you guys know, the path to hell is paved with good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to do that anymore. We can take our good intentions, learn from our past, and create a better future. So we learn through what we grow through, right?
That's absolutely
we
correct.
grow through what we go through.
Right.
Yesterday's mistakes are tomorrow's success.
That's it.
So
That's it.
I'm Chad Everett Brochures, the host of the Maturity Project, and this is my guest, Justin Ropele. Thank you again for showing up. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel. Look forward to the next one, and keep an eye out. We're going to be doing these more often, okay? We'll catch you on the next one. Let's get up to some stuff.
Thank you.
See ya.